Right, Mheshimiwa. Thank you for this opportunity, and apologies for taking so much
No
of your time. But I want us to reflect on the second term of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. So we'll spend a couple of minutes trying to dissect that. But let me begin with you telling us, what do you think happened that the UHURUTO presidency is now what it is? Because in the first time there was all this unity, bromance coming out and working so much together, speaking in the same voice. Today we don't hear or see much of that.
Well, I tended to believe what we had in the first term. It was actually what you would describe as honeymoon for the two principals, the president and the state deputy. And as we got into 2017, the biggest kind of suspicion happened when there was that feeling that since we are going to get into the second term and final time for President Uhuru's tenure, there was a burning desire by the deputy to position himself for succession. And as they were preparing for the second term, the president was more worried of his legacy. And the deputy was more obsessed with the succession. Now, those two things don't go together. And part of it was if you look at what happened in 2013, when they did a coalition, kind of, between URP, TNA, and they went out to canvass for votes, something very critical happened, which is unusual for a president and his deputy. And the most important part to realize was they negotiated. The Deputy President, William Ruto, came to the table and asked, if we go together, what do I get? So they agreed. You will get a half of government, you will get the Deputy President, and there they went. So the issue that was happening about kumi yangu, kumi yako is part of that package. But if you look at the promise of President Uhuru to his deputy, he 100% honored. He gave him the deputy president, the deputy president's job, gave him a half of government where he was actually picking ministers, parastatals, ambassadors, permanent or principal secretaries, and even the heads of our parastatals. Now, after the 2017 election, or during 2017 election, which I can authoritatively talk about because I was part of it, when that electioneering was happening, in the process of the president going for his legacy, he was very excited about Jubilee winning every seat. Anybody on Jubilee ticket. But in the background, the deputy president wanted to position his men and women everywhere in position for their succession. Now, if you remember the first attempt to do Jubilee nominations, the reason they backfired, and then there was a repeat, where they backfired is a lot of popular people won, but they were not amenable to the schemes, the connivings, and the planning of the DP. So they had to be cancelled that we had a repeat. Now, when that happened, you will find, I will give an example of Mount Kenya. Most of the popular candidates or credible leaders are actually out. And the people the DP wanted are in. So that's why you find like it was...
Give examples.
There is not one I will give you. I can tell you we are less than 5 in Mount Kenya who went against his wish, who went through. So you can count the rest. So what happened is, the issue that happened is when they were doing the nominations and the funding for the party, even though the party was funding, it had acquired an image where it appeared as though it is the DP who was funding these candidates. So when they went through, they actually feel they are beholden unto him, not to the party leader. Now you will hear a lot of clamor about people saying, no, 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 we want you to have the president had his deputy, and you cannot have one, not the other. Now, that is the language of the MPs I told you, or the members of parliament, who happen not to have loyalty to the party leader, but to the deputy president. I will give you very quick instances where you've seen concentration, specifically about the Mount Kenya region, or let's call it Central Kenya, where he seems to be having a lot of activities. Actually, 99% of the activities of the deputy president are actually within that region. You have not had him, for example, for every 10 events he does in the region, you will do 0 in the Rift Valley. And yet the Rift Valley is supposed to be his backyard where he's supposed to be able to be nurturing and making sure everything is okay. But he concentrates on Mount Kenya region. That's a mischief, but it's very calculated mischief. This is the home turf of the president. So he wants to go there on his own terms into the president's turf. And like 2013 when they went, and he said, I'm bringing Rift Valley, and what do I get in exchange? So he says, deputy president and half of the government. But the people he wants to pick in Mount Kenya, he wants them to be on his own terms, whereby he doesn't have to offer anything. They will come anyway. Because if you look at them, and I have told you again from the nominations, they are amenable to him. They are not credible leaders who will bang their chest and say, no, my community or my region wants to know what you offer. They will not ask that question.
I find that interesting, Mheshimiwa, because when you say that people who are loyal to the president did not win in the nominations, I'm asking for examples of people that won the nominations because they're beholden to the deputy president. If you can name a few.
I will give you an example myself. I was not in his lineup. Okay, now go to the rest. I will give you an example in Meru. I've been loyal to the president from day one. The rest, 8 out of the 9 are on the side of the deputy president.
So how exactly did he make sure that...
No. What happened is that in the process, there was a lot of trust. He was really trusted by the president that they were together. But in between, he was having his own schemes. And in that trust, he misused it. And the issue that I'm trying to explain to you, one, the president's keen about his legacy. The other one is obsessed with succession. But the point of departure happens when we met on the 31st of August 2017, the parliamentary group in the State House. The president came out, and he ended up like a riot act on all of us. He said, all of you have come. I believe I have helped each one of you, and none of you should have any business of having any policy statements or any other agenda. Agenda is myself. As the president, as the party leader, you will do my agenda. And I want you to give me 4 years, and after the 4 years, it will be now on the 4th year, I will pick up the mantle and start campaigning for my brother, William Ruto. That's what he told us in the State House. So he told us to keep off campaigning, keep off politicking, keep off scheming. Now, why I'm explaining that as a point of departure is when we got that message, we left the State House. I want to tell you, by December 2017, January 2018, February, the campaign for 2022 had been launched. Wherever they went for those church functions, pretending that they are homecomings, you will hear them, Deputy President, we are with you. And 2022, Niwewe. Now you see, it was not even 6 months after the previous election. Normally, when leaders are elected, you actually go and make a lot of promises to the people. Then, out of those promises, you are able to sit and deliver on the promises from the government departments or from government ministries. These members of parliament, they don't care about delivering on any promise. They are beholden to the promise of the deputy president becoming president 2022, and they don't talk about other issues.
Can you name any of these MPs you're talking about?
No, I'm trying to tell you it's not about naming, because if you want to put them in a cluster, you know the story of Tanga Tanga. That is the associated of the members of the deputy president. And I'm putting all of them now. Unless you tell me there's one who talks about issues of his constituents, doesn't talk about 2022, and he joins them in those rallies. It's all of them.
Let me take you back to the nominations of 2017. And what we remember
Yes.
Is that on the day of nominations, many things did not work.
Yes.
And then we had the proclamation from the deputy president that this was going to be repeated.
Yes.
And we saw him very hands-on to ensure that there were nominations. Yes. How then do you say that the will of the people was not represented in the outcome?
The will of the people was in the outcome on the first nominations. It was overturned on the day 2, when it was cancelled and repeated. Because on day 1, they created artificial shortage of ballot papers, artificial supervision shortages, and then in the evening, by 4 o'clock, there was chaos in the whole country. It was deliberate, because what was planned did not work out. And as I'm telling you, a lot of people who should have won, and won on the first. But on the second one, which was choreographed, many people didn't go through.
Is the president aware of this scheme?
I believe if a citizen like me is aware. He is aware of more than anybody else. He has all the intelligence, he has the data from every corner, from the Nyumba Kumi to everywhere. I'm sure he's aware.
And nothing he could do at that time?
Well, he didn't have to worry about, because the issue was there was a need to do the general election and a united party. So even if he was to raise an eyebrow, it would have caused chaos and confusion. And there was no need anyway. See, when watapita watakuwa in Jubilee, they actually came out Jubilee, but the way they behave, it's not something you would call Jubilee. Yeah, because you will find a very consistent message. People saying us versus them. You have heard that within our Jubilee party. People saying that we even have a different opinion. People saying we have a different kind of leadership. When you hear that, I can give you an example with what you saw in Bomas. There was a clear policy. This is the way we are doing it. This is the draft we are doing. The deputy president comes. He gives his own version of what he views should have been in the draft. Now, well, that is an opposition. And it is not small opposition. It's quite a substantial.
And that is why we're having this conversation, to understand where it all stemmed from. Because when you say that there was the riot act on the 31st of August 2017, was it in any specific terms directed at the deputy president at that time?
Well, what happened was that, as I've told you, he said, you obey me for the 4 years, and I will respond in kind. I will reciprocate, in the sense that I will wake up and campaign for the deputy president to succeed. But that's what I'm telling you. By December, that kind of call it a promise was not believed by the deputy president. He did not believe that the president was going to campaign for him. So he launched the campaign for himself.
And fast forward, a few days after the 31st, the election was cancelled.
We were taken aback.
So how did that change the focus of all of you now that you are back again at the campaign trail?
Well, we didn't win the presidency because the alternative was not very pleasant for anybody. So we went out and campaigned vigorously. And we won the re-election because even the other side actually didn't even participate.
And so, coming to that repeat election of the 26th of October 2017, and the president is declared winner, there's a petition at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says that the election was conducted in accordance with the law, and that President Kenyatta was validly elected as president. Did that affect in any way the focus of the Jubilee Party post-election now?
Well, I believe the issue of the Supreme Court and all the theatrics they did not in any way affect the mood of the country. What affected the mood of the country is the issue of one word, resist, coming from half of the country that had voted for Raila Odinga, or the NASA candidate. And the tension kept on going. We went to Parliament, we passed some laws, including some supplementary budgets, but it's true, it was very, very acrimonious. So what I can tell you is that the next 4 or 5 months were very critical for this country, whereby there was that tension that the country would explode anytime, whereby you will find it was in January, when Raila was being sworn in as the people's president with an unprecedented size of the crowd. There was nothing that was happening. He was announcing tomorrow there will be riots. It was like a public holiday. So no work was happening. So I can tell you that the mood of the country was literally affected by the split that happened between the opposition and now the government.
Mm-hmm. And let's fast forward to March 9th of 2018. And the president and the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga appear before the country, and they introduced to us the handshake. Yes. In the workings before that date, how much of involvement was the deputy president? I know the president has said that he was well aware, but from yourselves, the politicians that were in the line of Jubilee Party, how much of knowledge was with the deputy president? I
don't think the president has ever said anywhere that the deputy was aware of of the handshake. He wasn't. And to show that he wasn't, he was in his office when the handshake was happening. Normally, given the outgoing character of the deputy president, he would have been there even for the photo, even not for the negotiations. So if you remember in November 27th last year, when we were launching the original BBI, the president gave a choreography or chronology, sorry, not choreography, of the handshake genesis, how they met, just the two of them, they couldn't talk. Now you realize that the handshake, when it happened, from that date of the March 9 to date, the deputy president believes the handshake was meant to put him aside. So that is why I want to believe, and everybody believes, he was not party to the handshake.
The president told the nation that the deputy president was in the loop, even helped in picking some of the elders that sat in the BBI task force. And so if the president did not involve the deputy president in the handshake business, was this breach of trust on the side of the president to the deputy?
I think that is one of the most critical questions. When you are sworn in as the president of the republic, the honors and all the responsibilities about the safety, the whereabouts, the welfare, everything about the country is in your hands. And for that reason, you have a bigger responsibility than any other individual. So when you have the issue of being trusted, you don't need the trust of the deputy president to save the country from what it was going through. You are the president. When you are elected, it is your manifesto that was voted for. The fact that the deputy president is the part of the ticket, he does not own the legacy that you are supposed to bestow upon the country as the president. So that is when you hear even members of parliament saying that, no, sisi wengine tunataka president aheshimu stimu ile nasema maneno ya president, to respect the deputy president, they don't know what they are talking about. There is nothing which is bestowed on the deputy president in matters of manifesto or legacy to bestow on the country or to bequeath on the country. It is you, the president, with the mandate. And everybody else, from the deputy president to the voter, they are supposed to help you achieve what is in that manifesto.
But the question arises, yes, didn't the president know this in the first time? Because in the first time, there was a lot of consultation between the two of them, whether it's formation of government or whatever decision that
yes,
needed to be taken.
Yes, yes, I agree. I totally agree with you. But if you look at the tricks and the intrigues that happened in that first administration, you realize the kind of reshuffle that the president did on his second term. It could tell you that he was uncomfortable with the very many happenings that were happening within the center of government, including the comptroller, the one who keeps the president's diary, and the rest of the people that he removed in government in the first term, when he was going into his second term. So you will find the trust was there. And the trust is in delivered on the promise of giving him a half of government, giving him deputy president. About giving him 2022, it is something else, because 2022 is in the hands of Kenyans. It's not in the hands of the president. You cannot say the president will give you the president to you. This is not a monarchy.
Don't you read insincerity in that? Because the president himself said that kumi yangu,
yes,
kumi ya William.
Yes, but it is possible to deliver on the 10. He has been, you have kept him as deputy president for the 10 years. That's a promise delivered. He will have been with him without the signs of betrayal for the end of the term. Now, after 2022, when it comes, people will decide. And when the people decide, it is not about we will not go to ask for the president. Can you bring those millions of votes from your pocket and we give to the deputy president? You know it can't happen.
And therefore the question, if that is the thinking in the members of parliament that...
Even if it were you, I want to ask you now a question. Even if it were you, you are the president, you have your deputy. He has gone to your people who are supposed to be your constituents, where you are supposed to talk to support you as the deputy president, and you are now negotiating with them direct by picking them over the weekends and making them acquire for yourself, both the leaders and the people. Is that a person you really trust or who is waiting for you to help him?
That's what I'm asking you.
Yes.
What the deputy president and his team of members of parliament are doing, isn't it a cause or is it as a result of what he witnessed, that the president was not keeping his side of the promise?
If you follow the story we are talking about, unless you can pick an issue, one or two, where you can say the president did not behave accordingly, I can assure you it is the team of the deputy president which was restless. There is not a single incident where you can say the president behaved in a way that it looks like he is going to betray his deputy. It is the deputy president who organized and started the journey. Now the president is on the journey to talk about his legacy and the big four agenda. The president amechukua the button, the way he put it in Bomas, amechukua button pande hii, ameenda kutafuta 2022. No, those are two different directions. The way it is said, mpanda ngazi na mshuka ngazi hawawezi kushikana mkono. So hii mpanda ngazi, kama ni president anataka the big four agenda to be achieved, to make the country prosperous and to have its legacy. Mshuka ngazi, anaanza naye safari ya 2022. When you begin the safari ya 2022, I can tell you, in the history of this country, there is no other time we have campaigned for 5 years after the election. Unaanza election imeisha in August, by December you have begun the election for the other term. So when we do deliver on the issues you have promised to Kenyans.
So in the constitution of the cabinet for the first term,
yeah,
the bromance that we saw,
yes,
matching shirts, matching
yes,
ties, and addressing the nation at the same time. But come January 2018, yes,
yes,
and even later that month, we saw the president announcing the names of cabinet nominees alone.
Yes.
Why did that happen?
Because I'm sure they are not consulted. That should be the only reason you can say that. He might have given a few names for the appointment, but not the major parts of the government, the way you would put it. Like in the first government, you can say several key ministries were run by the deputy president's side. You can see all of them, from energy to agriculture to many.
So when you look at the current cabinet
Yes.
Of the second term, how much influence or control does the deputy president have?
Well, he has had control up to sometime August last year, whereby he had key ministries to his friends, either as ministers or permanent or principal secretaries. But I know many of them actually were shifted to lesser influential departments, which was necessary in order to achieve what the president needs to achieve, because he realized they are not walking the journey together.
Who are these?
And if the president and the deputy were not in the journey together, that's what I mean.
I'm asking about these ministers and...
No. You check around, you'll know them.
Mheshimiwa, I'm looking for specifics, and yes, we don't have a lot of cabinet ministers or cabinet secretaries. They're just about 20 or 21 or thereabout. So give me names. Who are these people that had to be moved because they were steering the agenda of the deputy instead of the president?
I'll give you an example. Go and look at the list of the reshuffle of the principal secretaries of August 2019. You'll get the engine of government who were shifted. Okay? Also look at the key ministries, infrastructure ministries. They were also moved out.
All right, you refuse to give me the names, but let's carry on. And so between March 2018, or actually after 2018, and you see a deputy president who is very vocal out here and speaking against the role of Raila Odinga within government, what was driving this and what was the thinking of the president's corner?
Well, those of us who know what you are asking, anytime you hear the deputy president mentioning about Raila or complaining about the Raila and calling him those adjectives, it is not Raila he's condemning. He is condemning his boss. Because Raila did not invite himself into the handshake. He was actually, the president said it is him who looked out for Raila. And they went into the handshake. So the handshake is for the two people. Now, the two people, between Raila and the President Uhuru, the president has a beef, the deputy president has a beef with his boss, not about Raila. So when you hear him attacking Raila or hitting at Raila, it is not about him being very passionate or bitter with Raila. No, he's bitter with his boss. Because it is not Raila who invited himself into the table. And it is not Raila who has betrayed, quote, the deputy president. He feels there's discomfort by Raila being on the table, but he's bitter with his boss having invited a third party. So when you hear him using adjectives, nasty adjectives on Raila, it is not Raila he is abusing. It is actually his boss. But since you all people see things differently, you think he is after Raila. No, it is. He is after.
And what does the president say about this or feel about this?
To be honest with you, he has an occasion to express his sentiment very eloquently about the discomfort. And you can read in between the lines. I can tell you when we were in Bomas, the first one last year, he gave you the chronology of the handshake and how the BBI was born out of the handshake. He didn't make reference to the deputy president. So that one is left for you and me to add. The same thing happened when we were launching the other one. Now, the problem or the good news with this one, the deputy president came out as a stranger to the document, and the president had the duty also to tell Kenyans, this man is not honest. He has been part of this journey all along, only that nobody knows what's happening. Because if you remember the first draft when it came out, people were invited to come and give their views. A lot of people refused to give their views. When the other draft now has been done, you hear them now running helter-skelter, looking for the document to have their views added. And the moment you open it, you do not know when to stop. Surely there was time to do these things, unless somebody says, I gave my views and they are not captured.
But the deputy president was never consulted on what his views are about the specific issues.
Well, I believe the invitation to give views was purely a public affair. Anybody who wanted to give views, give views. Everybody was invited to give views, and nobody told the deputy president to shy away from the views. And he had no time to give views because they were out there condemning and castigating the document before it came out.
But Honorable Maore,
if you see even the singing you saw in Mozambique 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, or even around Mount Kenya, to take in BBI, even before it was launched, done by the MP for Malindi. You know how eloquent she was in saying to take in BBI. Now, something you don't know what is there, and they were still fighting it. So you cannot say they were keen about what was in the document, yet they have been fighting it for more than a year.
But Mheshimiwa Maore, do you find it practical and fair to expect that the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya should go and air his views before a Building Bridges Initiative task force? Yet he is the Deputy President. Even the President didn't go to make his submissions, neither did Raila Odinga.
Let me tell you why the claimer is not fair. Just like the President, just like the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the Deputy President and the people in that committee, 3 of them. Okay? So if he had any views, he is likely to have aired them through those 3. But we didn't know that he had people there until the other day when the President told us.
Who are those 3? So
there's a lot of dishonest flying in the air all over in the room.
Who are those 3?
No, I don't know. I wish you guys should have asked even the
Secretary. You're the one telling me that there are 3 people.
The President told us when he was asked for 7, he gave 4, and Ruto gave 3. That's what he said.
Who and who?
I don't know. Just do your homework. I'm sure Mzee is one of them. Then the other 2, you add them. Just look around. You just look around, you'll get them.
I find that interesting. But let me just put it again, the question to you, because you said that he should have used those 3 to air his views.
Yes.
But they were not there to represent the views of political leaders. They were there to listen to Kenyans. So is it fair expectation that the Deputy President and his views to go and appear before a BBI task force?
Well, I don't think now, okay, now that you have brought it up, there is a need now. He's asking for consensus or a conversation around this thing. Who is he asking to give those the consensus or the conversation? Who is he asking? Document is out there. Let's
talk about Parliament and the division in the second term, because after the August the 31st, we saw Aden Duale retained at the National Assembly, Kipchumba Murkomen at the Senate, and Kithure Kindiki going to be the Deputy Speaker. Yes. How was that matrix arrived at? Who was going to be in the House leadership for both the Senate and National Assembly?
Well, when they have been in those positions, you know, to make changes is quite a very hard task. There was actually a clear divide that if you are the party leader, you really want your agenda and vision to be carried out in all the policies, specifically in the legislative arm of government. Now, when you hear any of those leaders, every weekend or in every forum, including the floor of the House, they were talking like strangers to the government agenda. So the issue of removing them was not done by the president, actually. It was done by themselves. Those fellas fired themselves. Because when you hear a member of parliament telling you that wako pande hiyo ingine, the question is to achieve what? Because if you tell them what manifesto is it, that if you talk of being with the deputy president is a good idea, but it's as a friend. But as an ally in politics, that's very dangerous. In the sense, you will find that if you have a manifesto, which paragraph in the manifesto of government or this Jubilee government, where the DP, you can say, there's an idea by the DP in this manifesto that I'm supporting. There is none. Everything about the Jubilee government is about the president. So when you hear a member saying, no, sisi tunataka tuheshimiwe, I think you saw them when they were going even to Jubilee House, nearly 40 of them. And he had actually the courage to go there to confirm that he has a faction or a rift of people who support him within the government, but he does not tell you is to support him to do what.
But the explanation I got is that he had gone there because he's the deputy party leader of the Jubilee party, and then some members of parliament heard he was there.
In the party, why did he not call me to accompany him there?
He says that he didn't invite anyone. It's just members of parliament that
How did he know they were going there? Anyway, it's a complicated story because actually when you hear people, when they are running astray, they have a lot of excuses. Because that's what I would call it.
So when did it occur to the party leadership that it was time to keep the deputy president away from the house, from the Jubilee House?
Well, he has not been kept from the Jubilee House. What has happened is that they opened another office, their colleague in Jubilee Asili, and they had gone there to harass workers. They had gone there to, we would actually call it misbehave, because there is no other time. Umesikia 40 members of parliament, they have gone to the party. So there is some mischief.
But they're members of the party.
Yes, but which other day? In the last, let's say, 5 years, when the Jubilee has been in existence, or 4 years, when they have gone there.
There's a first day in everything.
No, why I said there have been a second one.
Because they were told never to go back.
No, actually you find that they were misbehaving. That's why they were told not to go back.
What, in your view, is the future of the Jubilee Party?
Well, the Jubilee Party is quite okay. It has been rejuvenated by those people who have been joining and signing coalition agreements. And I think there were about, it's quite a lot of activity before those stormings happened. And it has changed even the configuration of the NEC to some extent, whereby there were threats or blackmail of holding the party at ransom. That issue has been neutralized.
Largely, the Jubilee Party is the fusion of TNA and URP.
Yes.
And if the deputy president decides to go his own way, he'll go his own way with a wing that was in the TNA, if you had to talk about Mount Kenya. So what really remains in Jubilee?
Well, I have not heard anybody saying he is going.
If he were, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think that has not go into the realm of speculation. Let us wait. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is time.
You're really proving to be difficult in getting answers from you. But tell me about these coalitions or cooperation agreements. With Kanu, I know it's a coalition. With Wiper, it's a cooperation agreement.
Yes.
And there's a different arrangement with the ODM.
Yes.
When you're doing all this, is it for the survival of the president's wing of the Jubilee Party, or is it intended at better results for the delivery of services to Kenyans? Actually,
you've answered it, most of it. It's purely the issue of legislative agenda in Parliament specifically. When you have the coalition of the ODM, or the NASA coalition, you have Kanu and the Wiper. With the members of the Jubilee, you have a lot of strength in Parliament, because you will find before the reshuffle that you are talking about in leadership, there was quite a lot of tension and acrimony and madharau mingi from some faction of Jubilee that was threatening to fight the government agenda. And I'll give you an example. You go to Kibra, the Jubilee Party wanted to do their way they have done in Musambweni. But the DP sneaked in with his candidate and they gave him the Jubilee ticket. So when they went for the campaign, the handshake candidate won in Kibra. Or when a similar goodwill was being extended in Musambweni, being an ODM ticket, they are now, you can find a lot of members of Jubilee supporting a candidate who is not a member of the Jubilee Party. But when we were in Kibra, they were condemning us for those who went there to campaign in Kibra for Kenokov. They said we were betraying the party and we needed to be disciplined. So what are they doing? What are they doing now in Musambweni? The party declined.
Just how powerful is the DP, or was the DP in the Jubilee Party, to the extent that he'll have a candidate standing for election in Kibra and he's not the party's candidate?
No. What happened is that he is a deputy party leader. You cannot say he is not powerful. So when he came and they gave out the ticket, the same thing he wanted to do in Musambweni. But of course, he was tricked by minutes. Within minutes, where the party announced that they are not sponsoring a candidate, that's when he was rushing there with the members I'm telling you about. He went there with a candidate. Akakuta already, it's out in the media that the party is not sponsoring a candidate. So it was difficult for the party to retrieve that to sponsor a candidate in Mosambweni. So what we are having members of Jubilee doing in Mosambweni is actually they are now displaying what we are talking about. They are displaying a rift within the party, sponsored or staged by the deputy president.
So when you look at all the noise and the chaos that have been in this second term, how would you say they have affected the delivery of the promise made by Jubilee Party in 2017?
Well, there has been a delay. But you can say the vision and the agenda of the president has not been derailed. Because he wanted to have the Jubilee even succeed in the next dispensation after him. But with the handshake coming in, it's going to be a major factor in the next, or as part of his legacy. The president's legacy is to bring everybody on board, specifically the half of the country that was not with him in 2017. So, to a big extent, that legacy of peaceful transition is going to be very important for this country.
The Jubilee Party may be dead after 2022.
Well, I think the issue of Jubilee, nobody is killing Jubilee. It will be alive and well. Nobody has killed it.
No, I mean, if the party leader and deputy are not getting along and they are...
No, the Jubilee is not about the party leader and the deputy party leader.
But they are the vision bearers of the party.
Yes, but if the party is supposed to survive even when they are not there. If it was a strong entity...
What chances do you see of it surviving?
Well,
let's be real, Mheshimiwa.
I think when we finish this story, the one we are beginning now, the issue of the BBI, we will see what kind of dispensation that comes out of it. Okay? So we are going to have between now, the next 7 months, between now and June, we will see what kind of configuration we might have.
So officially you can say that Project William Ruto, 10 years, is almost dead.
But no, I haven't seen that. You know, miracles in politics happen.
But you're pegging the future of the Jubilee Party on the configuration that may come after the BBI process.
No, actually, the handshake will bring a lot of good tidings.
So would you say that the vision to have DP Ruto ascend presidency through Jubilee Party is still alive?
That one, I cannot visualize that.
What will determine its success?
Well, what happens is that I'm saying things are not, he is not late. He can go and reconcile and say where he had misbehaved, which he had done. He says, I'm sorry. And then maybe the president can open up and they start working together. But this time they have to have Raila on board. So he has to look for a way of stop abusing Raila, stop seeing Raila as an enemy, seeing him as a serious, patriotic Kenyan who has sacrificed for this country, who has been there for multipartyism when many of us were not willing to sacrifice the way he has done.
A person that you campaigned so harshly against in 2017?
Oh.
Yourselves as Jubilee?
Well, that's why I'm telling you, politics is dynamic. And if 5 months later you are having a handshake with him as the savior of the country, because the country was on the brink. So we need to respect him for that.
There are those that say that the BBI document is not good for the country in as far as some of the proposals. If you're talking about the reconstitution of IBC to have politicians sitting in there and being referees, having a judiciary ombudsperson appointed by the executive, that would appear like interference with the executive. And this is going to determine the basis of 2022?
You have already raised 2 issues. I can respond to them. First, the IEBC is supposed to arbitrate in the elections. As of now, there are 3 members left. If I were asked myself for the continuity of the institutional memory, I would have said you appoint 4 more and then they continue. But in the draft, it is firing them. Now, when they are firing them, they are talking about a panel. It is a panel which will pick the members of the IEBC. And the panel has not said they are going to pick from the political parties. The people who are fighting the draft are the ones who are creating these innuendos about IEBC.
Honorable
if you
Maore.
go to the judiciary, no, let me answer the 2 of them.
Okay.
If you go to the judiciary, an ombudsman, just like the Chief Justice, unless you say when the Chief Justice is appointed goes to work for the president, the answer is no. You are appointed by the president, go to parliament for vetting, and then you are appointed Chief Justice. It's the same way. If you want an ombudsman for the judiciary, he cannot be an employee of the judiciary appointed by the Chief Justice because the conduct of that Chief Justice is likely to come on the table. And that's why you need, actually, if you see people who have done homework, just like in Parliament, in the House of Commons, there's somebody called the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards. It's about ethics. If you see a member of Parliament misbehaving here in our National Assembly, and the misconduct is brought to the table to a committee by other members, they all sympathize and cover it up. But if you have a commissioner for standards, like the one they have in the House of Commons, he will bring in all the chronology and prescribe the punishment, which cannot be done by the members.
Honorable Maore,
among themselves.
You might be accused of trying to amend the BBI report because from my reading, I see that there shall be, 4 of the commissioners shall be representative of the parliamentary political parties.
No, but what I'm explaining to you, the issue of the BBI, the way it has come out, there is a lot of people fighting it. And that is one of them. And I've told you my version. If it were me to pick, I would have a panel, they pick the 4, and then we go around with the institutional memory of the 2 who are there and the chair.
Right. So as we conclude on this, who would you blame for the woes in the Jubilee administration currently?
There hasn't been actually a lot of problem. The way you would describe them, the issue is that when we brought in the handshake, I've told you again, it was to save the country from the brink that emanated from the 2017 elections. On the entry of the NASA principle in the decision-making of government, it has actually stabilized this country. It has brought peace in the country. It has brought the hope for the country. So about the woes in the government, I don't know what we would describe as woes.
Let me explain.
Yes.
You have some cabinet secretaries touring a certain area, and you hear one of them, CS Tobiko, saying that the deputy president is just a clerk.
Yes.
I mean, that would appear like disrespecting the authority of the deputy president. You don't have a problem with that?
But I think the title clerk is more superior than hustler, and I think he was happy with it.
You know what I'm talking about. I mean, surely, you can't call a deputy president.
No. Actually, what has been happening is the deputy president has invited that to himself. Because surely this should not be the time for campaigns where you will be getting those titles, whether it is tanga-tanga, whether it is a clerk, whether it's a hustler. This is a time they should be in delivery. The election should have been launched in December 2021, where you do it for 80 months. You have party nominations, you have party canvassing, you get the mantle to run the party, then you start campaigning. This is a time for delivery. So for sure, when you hear the cabinet secretaries getting that kind of excitement, they have realized hapa kuna ukosefu wa adabu na umejaa. So
but this is their boss. You can really be speaking about your boss in such a manner.
Well, I think the issue that arose, I remember the context, is when you go and you have the boss have the numbers. You know how you can have crowds, specifically around Mount Kenya. The crowds in Mount Kenya, they are not meant to actually be votes for the deputy president. They are meant to tell people in Kakamega, you see, niko na Mount Kenya, msipokuja hapa mtawachwa nje. In the evening, you see the money in Kuala, you are told, no, you see, if we have Mount Kenya, you can see the crowds. It will be, you will be locked out. You know, it is meant, that's the kind of context in which CS Tobiko was talking about the clerk.
That's fine, but why does it bother them? I mean, they have been given a mandate by the president and the constitution to deliver on service delivery for the country. Now, whatever the deputy president does in his political wing should not come in their way of delivering services.
Now, what has happened is that when in the course of their delivery of service, there has been a lot of politics. And it is this politics which is clouding the air until you find the CSS who are supposed to be apolitical They get into politics because even you as the deputy president, you are supposed to be working, but you have gone wrong.
But he's a politician.
Yes, when you are a politician, when you have gone wrong, you lose that respect of the office.
Does it then mean that the president is not in charge of his own cabinet secretaries, that they can speak the way they want against the deputy?
No, well, the way we can put that one is for you to, respect is earned. For example, if they go to cabinet, there are things they will discuss in the cabinet and agree 1, 2, 3 things needs to be done. So when you live there, you talk the opposite. So what does that mean?
I mean, it's not in the cabinet ministers, because in the current structure, then the hierarchy, the pecking order is the president, the deputy, then the cabinet secretaries. Yes. But when they speak against him in such a manner, isn't that disrespect? And it would appear that the president is okay with it.
No, I will tell you why I would not have a problem with it. If the deputy president protested, I'm sure the president would have addressed it. But the deputy was happy with the additional title, from the hustler to the tanga-tanga. Now the clerk, they were happy with it.
How successful has the Jubilee Party been in delivering on its promise, whether it's about first term or the second term?
Well, I can tell you they have achieved quite a lot. In the harsh economic conditions that we are facing, the high rates of unemployment, because when you have millions of youths who are jobless, and I don't think there is any economy our size which can absorb the youths that need to be employed. I remember there was this story of creating, is it 1.5 million jobs? Digital. And also creating the 1.5 million digital jobs. Also the issue of laptops for schools. That's a digital era. It would have taken quite a giant step forward. But you hear in our political discourse, people talking about now giving wheelbarrows. They are not talking of the digital jobs. They are on the wheelbarrows. So that's a contradiction. People need to answer themselves.
But you can't blame the deputy president for that. I mean, it's up to the president.
No.
He's the bearer of the manifesto.
Yes, he's the bearer of the manifesto. The deputy president sits in the cabinet. He has never brought a motion or an agenda in the cabinet to say that they would wish to emphasize on the manifesto, because I'm sure he would have been listed as the deputy president of the party, or deputy party leader of the party.
Honorable Maore, asante sana.
Shukran.